In this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I speak to Kristin Thompson about overcoming personal adversity to rock your business out. Hello and welcome to session 46 of the Purple Coffee Podcast, inspiring entrepreneurial stories from some of the world's finest. I'm your host, Turndog, and on this occasion I speak to Kristin Thompson, who is a bit of a rock star speaker, helps people discover their true value and embrace themselves, be it in presentation or speaking form, or just a general business sense. She's a true go-getter, a wonderful personality, and is full of beans. I loved my conversation with her. It gave me a boost of adrenaline, and I'm hoping that she will boost your day too. So we're going to be getting through to the interview very, very shortly, but I just wanted to share a little bit more about Kristin and about her great mistake. So often with a successful mistake, I've found about mistakes that really touch on a business sense. Someone has lost money, made a poor business decision, whatever it might be. But in Kristin's case, it was a personal one. It was something that was going on in her personal life, something that couldn't really have been avoided in all honesty. But it still affected her business, and she had to find ways to overcome it. And it taught her a lot about herself, her passion, her purpose, and what she ultimately does now in a very successful sense, both in terms of happiness and monetary value. So it's a true great one. I hope you take a lot from it. I know that I did. We're going to now get straight in to this awesome conversation, but not before I share my little bio about Kristin, because I hope you get to learn more about her just like I have. So that's what I'm going to do. Here we go. When you look at Kristin Thompson, you see a rock chick with coloured hair, a devilish smile, and the type of eyes that scream, "I'm going to rock you." And rock you she does, strumming her guitar, speaking wisdom, and helping you find the right chord to fit your very own style and persona. She wants you to stand out and be yourself, and most important, be comfortable with yourself. She achieves this by being herself, and when she's finished with you, boy, you'll be shattered, because she rocks it and rolls it and keeps the distortion on loud. Enough music-related epicness thrown your way? Good. For it's time to meet Kristin, and she's ready to dance a funky dance. Sorry, I couldn't resist one more. Here's Kristin and me chatting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining me. I'm delighted this evening to be joined by Kristin Thompson, who is from Speak, Serve, Grow, and she has just come back from her amazing Rise Live event, which I believe is in its second year. People flying from all over the world to basically thrive in a live environment, and I'll let Kristin talk a little bit more about that. And as you can probably see, Kristin is a fellow lover of purple, which is great. And if you go onto her website, you will notice the purple. It's the very first thing I noticed because, well, as those who know me, they know that I love purple. Kristin.
It's a magical color.
It is. And I believe it kind of like, they say that it's royal.
It is.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, it says you've got a bit of royal blood in your monarchy or something. So I kind of take that as a good thing, I guess.
It is, although I'm pretty sure I'm not royalty, but I do like the royal color.
Yeah, me too. I can't say that I have any known royal blood in me, but, you know, you never know.
You never know.
Who knows?
You never know.
But Kristin, thank you ever so much for joining me and being part of this journey. Yes. This is in aid of a successful mistake, a book I'm writing about an entrepreneur's grandest faux pas. But before we get to Kristin's big, juicy, mistake-riddled tale, I'm going to pass it over to you so you can just explain a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and that great live event, which I believe was like 8 or 9 days ago.
Yes, I'm still coming off of the blur and the high that happens when you do a multi-day event. We had a great time, but for those of you who maybe I haven't had a chance to meet yet, what I do is help entrepreneurs turn their mission and their message into a talk that they can share online and off. That'll help them generate leads and clients and cash. And what I've found is that that's one of the big stumbling blocks that really holds people back, especially in the beginning part of their business, is that you might be really great at what you do and you have confidence in your area of expertise, but just not enough people know about you. Or when you're talking to people about what you do, you're not sure how to do it in a way that actually gets them to want to buy from you. And that's really the process that I've perfected that I now share with my clients.
Fantastic. It's something that I still struggle with and continue to learn. And it's just one of those things, I believe, when you start out, you're trying to sort of find that niche, you're trying to find that pitch. It's a horrible word, isn't it, the elevator pitch? But it's something that you kind of need to understand so you can communicate yourself in an instant and just kind of grab those who are going to be of interest to you straight away.
Yeah. And, talking about what you do and even learning how to give talks in front of groups. And we talked a lot about this at the Rise Live event, which you mentioned earlier, which is really a live training environment where people can learn more about how to use speaking to grow their business. But for people watching or listening or reading, the bottom line is that you can take the information that all the stuff that's in your head, and turn that into a talk that you can give on lots of different platforms that will get you highly visible, number one, present you as an authority, and convert people that maybe you just met into paying clients. And once you can kind of unlock that key, all things are possible in your business.
Absolutely, completely agree with that. So it's a fantastic thing, and I certainly urge you to go on to Kristin's website. I'll be putting the links down below this video and audio, and yeah, just check it out. Lots of great content there, and if you fancy, I'm sure you're going to be doing another live event next year. Is there going to be a third?
There will, absolutely. We had a rip-roaring good time, lots of great feedback from the people who attended. So there will be a Rise Live event 2015. And so definitely if people want to check that out, they can go to speakservegrow.com. But we've got lots of free training on there as well for people who are just getting to know me.
Fantastic. Well, certainly check that out. And if you are tempted to be part of a really crazy misfit crowd, then you might want to do that. It sounds like it was a rip-roaring event. So exciting indeed. Well, like I say, this interview all is in aid of your great mistake and how you turned it around, because the book I'm writing is about mistakes and how they've been twisted and twisted and twisted some more until something juicy and wonderful has been turned into it. So I'm just going to pass it over to you so you can share that great mistake with us, that journey, that story, how it came about, and I suppose the adventure you've been on since then, how it's led you to now. And in between all that, I'm sure I'll throw a few questions your way. So sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, jump in whenever you want. And literally, we could probably block off the next week with my stories of mistakes, because there's a lot of them. I love this topic, and I love that you're diving into it, because you have really hit the nail on the head. Because what holds people back is this idea or this notion that we're all supposed to kind of come out polished and perfect and know the perfect message and the perfect way to say it, and that we're never going to have any missteps. And I think sometimes even social media can give the illusion, or even websites, when you're on the outside looking into somebody's business, it can really appear like they're not making any mistakes. But the truth is that you're just not seeing them, right? Or we're not publicizing them a lot of the time. True?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people can be very good at hiding the bad side of things. I always look at it as like the gambler. They'll always talk about that big win when they win, 1,000 or 2,000 and 3,000. You're like, wow, they make it sound so easy. What they don't tell you is that for 10 weeks in a row, they were losing 50, 60 times a pop.
That's right.
And it probably ended up losing more money than what they won over, a 3-month period. People are usually got selective memory in that aspect. And I think business owning is no different. People are always happy to talk about that big new client. They're not always as happy to talk about when something didn't go right, or if they've had a quiet month. So, yeah.
So true. And so I love that you're kind of shining a light on the missteps, because if we can get comfortable making mistakes, and we can get comfortable knowing that the path to success is not going to be paved in perfect gold, right? There's going to be, I always say, there's mud puddles, there's roadblocks, there's like a tree you have to climb. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that you're going to do along the way to being very successful. And it's not all perfect and sunshine and rainbows and pots of gold. So for myself, what that looked like was, in the beginning of my business, I had learned how to speak to groups. I worked for a personal development company for about a year and gave a very scripted, like literally a word for word scripted talk that I memorized and gave, that sold people into their personal development workshops. So that's how I learned how to speak to sell. And that was great. And while I was doing that, I got pregnant, which was also really great. Except that shortly after getting pregnant, doctors were telling my husband and I that they thought that there was something severely wrong with the baby that was growing inside of me. And they actually said that we should terminate the pregnancy and start over. that was our first ultrasound. So what should have been this exciting, glorious moment of celebration suddenly got very, very serious and very, very scary. And the reason why I'm sharing what is obviously a very personal story in a business situation is because what that meant was we ultimately decided to go forward with the pregnancy with a lot of counsel and a lot of prayer. That was the right choice for us. And what that meant was that throughout my pregnancy, I was getting biopsies and scans and all kinds of drama was going on. And if you know anything about the United States medical system, you can probably also hear the bills tallying up in your head. So this was becoming a very, not only scary journey, but a very expensive one. My water broke about a month and a half before I was due to give birth, which is also not normal, which meant I also spent a week on bed rest in the hospital. My son was born early. He was spent some time in the neonatal intensive care unit. And again, for those of you in America, you're adding up the bills going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So sure enough, I left the hospital with, I'm very thankful and very grateful to say, a very healthy, happy little baby boy who's named Gavin James Thompson, which is the great gift of that experience. But in my other hand was a giant stack of medical bills. And we really didn't know how we were going to pay those bills. I had taken a leave of absence as a new mom. Here in the United States, we were going through that giant economic downturn. This was in 2008, turning into 2009. So there's like literally a financial disaster happening here in the US. And my husband is working for a small business that is going under and gets laid off. And so we were in a financial pickle, to say the least. And so when you talk about mistakes, one of them was that I had been, not willing to be a true entrepreneur. I was kind of in this half step of being an independent contractor. And I was afraid to take that big leap. Who am I to teach my own workshops? And who am I to create my own talk? And I was kind of playing small. And so here I found myself in a really precarious financial situation where we were literally about to lose our house, everything. And it caused me to make a much more bold decision than I would normally do under a normal situation, which I think is the gift inside every giant hole, like the one that we were in, is that it brings a bigger version of you out. And so for me, it meant that it was time to write my own talk and sell people into my own workshop. That was sort of the first step out on my own. And it was terrifying, but it was a great experience. So I went and gave a 45-minute talk at a local networking group, and I gave people an opportunity. And I said, hey, if you like this topic and you want to learn more, you can come back next week. I'll teach a workshop literally just for the people in this room. And if you don't want to come, that's fine. But if you do, I'll host this private workshop. And I just asked for a quick show of hands. And of the 40 people in the room, 30 people put their hands up and said they were willing to come back for a workshop. And I charged them only like $97 a pop. And I walked out with $3,000 in my hand. And for somebody watching or listening or reading, that might seem like a lot of money, or it might seem like a little money. But on that moment in my life, I was like, woohoo, right? Like, talk about gambling. I felt like I had pulled that slot machine and money was running out, right? I was thinking, how did that happen? I walked in broke. I spoke for 45 minutes. I leave with $3,000. That was like a Christmas miracle for me that day. And so that was sort of the first step. And then can I share another mistake that I made next?
Yeah, definitely. But I just want to just handle, because the mistake that you talk about, part of it was the fact that you didn't sort of fully commit earlier, which is understandable, the fear. I suppose that's a mistake you made. But an important fact to understand from an entrepreneur's point of view is that sometimes it's not always your mistake. It can be society's mistake, or it might not be a mistake at all. I kind of see mistakes and failure and adversity and obstacles. They all bundle under the same thing. Sometimes life just throws you lemons, and you've got to deal with it and overcome it. And in your case, obviously, the financial, economic downturn came. You went through all this personal trauma with your little boy, which is just beyond, I mean, I have a young, not quite 2-year-old son, and I can't even imagine going through something like that. I'm woeful at dealing with that kind of life sort of worry, and it is just the most traumatic thing ever. So it's important to know as an entrepreneur that sometimes it's not as a physical mistake you are going to make. Like, you did make one in the sense of not committing earlier, but sometimes it will be economy's fault. Sometimes it will just be a personal thing, a death in a family or something along those lines. Sometimes it'll be a mistake made by a staff member or a founding partner. But it's all going to come back on you as the entrepreneur, and you're going to have to figure out ways to overcome them. It's no point in blaming others. You have to suck it up and go, right, how am I going to turn this around?
Such a great point. And I think it is important. One of the biggest lessons I think I've learned in being an entrepreneur is to take things less personally. In other words, my husband and I both struggled at that time. Really, we were struggling with feeling badly about ourselves. Like, oh, we should have done this. We should have done that. We were, in a state of blame for a little while there, but you learned very quickly that woe is me and hanging your head or blaming society or blaming the economy is not going to get you out of that hole. So one of the best things that I learned, and I still learn it in my business over and over again, is to say, what if we just took the emotion out of it for a minute? I can have those emotions, but then you got to set them aside and say, what do I need to do to get out of this situation? So you're right. It was kind of a mishmash of stuff that we had done with our finances, maybe not saving enough, things of that nature, mixed with circumstance that led to a pretty tricky situation. But like all things, taking action is the best way to get out. Any kind of action is better than no action at all. Yeah. So the next misstep, like that was sort of the half step in the right direction. But the next misstep was that my business model was really pretty sad in that you could only come to this workshop or not go to the workshop. And that was my whole entire business. So I would go give a talk like anywhere that would have me, a local business association or a chamber of commerce or a networking group. I'd go give a talk. I'd offer them tickets to my live workshop that I would run about once a quarter. So I'd give talks, as often as I could, funnel everybody into this one workshop. And that was my entire business. And it sounds kind of cool because it's very simple, and it was very simple. But it was also what I like to call the one-legged stool, in that it kind of toppled over and it wasn't balanced. There weren't multiple streams of income. If I lost my voice, which happened, I couldn't earn money that day. If I couldn't go out and give a talk, I couldn't earn money that day. And so I very quickly in that first year on my own learned that while it was great that I was out on my own and generating income on my own terms, I was still not really the right solution for a long-term thriving business that was going to be leveraged and allow me to have some sort of freedom. And so very quickly I learned that I needed to have some leveraged income and I need to have multiple streams of income. So I started adding other components to my business, like home study programs that people could just buy online and go through on their own, private coaching or group coaching programs that would kind of have consistent income over a 6-month period versus constantly having to refill that revenue every single month. So that was another big mistake that I like to share with people because it's really easily solvable. As you're starting your business, it's okay to create one stream, but then very quickly start looking for what are some other ways to get income from other areas so that if one part of your business goes away, you're still profitable.
And another aspect of that is the idea of scaling an idea. It's something I've come across a great deal along this journey where in the beginning, you're so focused on just making any money because you have an idea. And like you say, that first time when you just made $3,000, that was just everything in the world. But you're not in a year's time, that $3,000, you'll be like, well, that's fine, but I'm past that now. I need to be making 30,000 or 60,000 or 100,000. And if your idea kind of has a ceiling at, you can only serve 10 people at a time or 100 or 500, but you get to a point where thousands of people want you. And you know that you could reach thousands of people, but the way you're doing it won't allow you to do that, then you've hit a ceiling and your idea and your business ultimately isn't scaling. And that just means you're going to get to a certain point and plateau from here on in. So sometimes starting out, it's like, okay, what can I do right now to start generating income? But will this idea allow me to earn more money? And will I be able to scale it to serve 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, and so on?
Great point. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I was definitely in that desperate situation. Like, how do I make $1? It's just like, how do you make any money? And I think for me, I was amazed that I could make anything on my own with my head and my mouth, right? That's like a phone and my mouth and a laptop. I was pretty much good to go. But you very quickly you learn, okay, you got to have something that's scalable, that's leveraged so that not only can you make more money, but you can do it in a way that doesn't make you miserable, which is sort of the other half of that equation, which is you can really end up accidentally creating a business structure that just sucks the life out of you. I didn't really have that luxury because my son was so little when I was launching this business, and my husband and I were very committed to the idea that I wouldn't be in the office all day, every day. And so I was working, and still to this day, for the most part, I'm running my business on a part-time, about 30 hours a week or less. In the beginning, I literally only worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I took my business from basically zero. That first year when I was kind of stumbling and fumbling, I generated somewhere around $30,000, which I was pretty excited about, but I also knew there was a lot more in me. So within the next year, I went from 30,000 to 175 and then doubled it again a year later and have continued to grow. And all of that was done keeping that Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. Wow. So the only way that that's possible to continue to grow your income without completely blowing up your schedule is that word scalable, which you just mentioned.
Yeah, and before we talk about the different sort of revenues that you took it and diversified, it's amazing how quickly you can go from sort of rock bottom where $3,000 is all the money in the world within a couple of months. All of a sudden it's like, wow, that isn't enough now, and I know that I can treble or quadruple or
I laugh at that $3,000.
Exactly. How fast did it take you to kind of get from that moment to, like you say, get to a point where it's like, man, I need to rejig my business plan to be able to take it to the next level? Was it 3 months, 6 months, a year?
Well, what happened was, let me think about this. In the spring of 2011 was when I really said, okay, I want to really make this a 6-figure business. My son was, I think, going on 3 or had just turned 3. So he was starting to go to school a little bit more. I knew that I had it in me. And that was when I really unveiled Speak, Serve, Grow. So the first shift was that I changed my brand from being, it used to be Thompson Professional Development, if you can imagine.
Very classy.
It was very corporate, if you can imagine. So I wore a suit and I had kind of blonde hair, and there are funny pictures circling around the internet, proof that this happened.
Not nearly enough purple.
No purple. It was navy and white with stock photos of like men shaking hands on the website. Like, nice to meet you. And it was basically devoid of any personality or anything interesting whatsoever. Okay. So I'm like, I've got to turn this on. I want a real business. I want to make 6 figures. I switch to Speak, Serve, Grow. I've got purple on the site now, and I'm being me. And it took me from spring of 2011 until the end of that year to go from doing like $3,000 months, maybe a $5,000, and then a 2. It was this very wobbly, low income, to then doing 8 and 10K months. So it took me about 6 months, and they were not easy 6 months, right? We're talking on this, and in this show and in your book about failures. I went through a lot of conversations where I did not convert clients. And there were a lot of them, not just one, like a string of them. And I could not close a new client. My joke was that I couldn't close the door. It was like, I can't close the damn front door. I can't make anything happen. And so there was struggle. There was learning and honing my own craft. But once I broke through and I had a taste of a $10,000 month, I tell you what, I was like, I am never going back. This is it. This lights my fire. This lets me serve more people. This lets me take care of my family. This is where I'm going to stay. So in my own business and with my clients, I call that the new normal, right? It's like just deciding that this is the level that you're going to play. And then it becomes a game. And that's the other really fun thing about kind of breaking through to any new income level. What's from 0 to 5,000, from 5,000 to 10, from 10 to 15, from 15 to 20. We just keep going. You learn that it is a playful, fun game, that you can have fun in your business. But the most important thing for me has always been creating that new normal, which means surrounding yourself with people who are playing at that level and generating the kind of income you want to, so that it doesn't seem so crazy. Because I can tell you in the beginning, 10K a month, 3 days a week seemed bonkers. And now I've gone well beyond that. But in the beginning, that seemed insane. And your brain can't make something happen that seems insane. You've got to find a way to make it feel normal. And one of the best ways to do that is to surround yourself with people who are already doing it.
Wow, what an inspiring story for everyone out there. Because it's one thing to kind of say all this, but those at home are going to be going, well, yeah, I know that I should be scaling my idea, but I just need to cling on to absolutely anything. But it does go to demonstrate how quickly the tides can turn. And even if, you know, in the beginning you just have a sneaky feeling every now and then of like, is this capable of scaling? You know, can I move what I'm doing offline onto online? Will I be able to scale it from 10 people to 50 people or 100 or 1,000? You know, it doesn't take a lot of work to do that or a lot of planning.
Oh.
It's just the occasional thought process. So that transition is easier because we're all in it not to scrape by. If we wanted to just scrape by in life, we'd probably just get
a job
9 to 5. We do it with the hope that, you know, one day we're going to be able to live our life without even thinking about money, you know, whatever that sort of level of income is. And, you know, we kind of think that we want that. And in order to get there, it's going to happen at some point, but it's only going to do so if you're able to scale it. So just share us a bit more info in terms of how you diversified it. Was it just a case of starting to take things online, or was it that mixture between online and offline?
Yeah, I love the mixture of online and offline. I'm just a huge fan of it. I think that it gives you a lot of control over your income. And again, it gives you those different ways of pulling in income. I love speaking. That's the core of what I teach my clients to do. And I think that the most loyal fans that I've ever created or clients that I've created, my best clients, are definitely people that I met live in person. If you think about it, just in your own life, your best relationships are people you actually spend time with, right? So going and speaking at a live event or hosting your own live event or workshop is a great way to create really loyal fans and clients, and also to sell higher end offers. It's just a really great way to do it. Now, if that's all you do, as I said earlier, you're going to be really exhausted because it constantly requires you to be out in person, dressed, makeup on, right? Ready to rock. And so if you want to be able to have that leverage, then having materials online is a great way to go, or selling product online. So I really do use the blend. And that was the shift that made the difference for me, was going from all live in person with workshops to adding a way to serve people virtually, which means I started seeing clients privately, who I would just serve over the phone or webinars or Skype, so we could chat like you and I are. And that the private clients allowed me to see people outside of my local market because I'm serving them virtually. And because they were long-term clients, it gave me kind of a bed or a foundation of income that provided some stability that I was missing. And then I added a home study program, which then gave me the ability to sell something that I didn't need to deliver at all. After delivering it once and having the recordings done, I could resell it at any time and not have to deliver it live. And so having lots of different ways for people to say yes on various platforms, live and virtual, really gave me the ability to expand how many people I could serve and not expand how much I was working.
Wow. And it sounds here, from at least from my point of view, that you didn't do a great deal of diversifying in the traditional sense. You were just ultimately creating these different revenue streams. It was a kind of the same content and the same type of style you were producing offline, and you were just doing it through, you know, Skype one-on-one calls, through, you know, courses, online courses, through books, through content, through webinars. You know, ultimately it's the same kind of content, the same things that you're doing all the time. It's your particular style and world. And you're just creating different little revenue streams to just help sort of make the entire thing more scalable.
Yeah, for a lot of coaches or consultants, that's such an easy way to go. A big mistake I think people make, and I was tempted to do this in the beginning, is to be constantly creating new content and new products. But the truth is that there's generally a lot more profit and a lot more money in the core of what you do, that you're thinking that you need to make new things when you really just need to keep marketing that one thing that you do really well. So you're right. It's like you take the thing that maybe you're teaching in a one-day workshop, and that can become a 6-week training series that's online. And then you could take a group of people through that over 6 months, really in depth, and coach them through it. So you can take that one little bubble of content and repurpose it across multiple platforms without really having to create anything new, while doubling, tripling, or quadrupling your profits.
Wow. I think that's such an important point, because when people hear diversifying and scaling and growing, they think that, oh, well, I'm going to have to go up the ladder.
Yes.
I will be horizontally going up. You know, I'm going to have this one product, and then I need to then produce another product and another, and I'm going to have to diversify into different markets. Where in actual fact, all you've done is go from side to side. You know, it's like the same thing, and you've just gone lateral rather than horizontal, and it is just a case of repurposing the content and the product rather than reinventing the wheel.
And I'm a big fan of that because it's A, it's really simple. B, your average coach or consultant can do it with very little effort because it's the stuff that they're really great at, that you could hand them a microphone and they could just start talking off the top of their head. And because I use speaking so much to grow my business, whether it's an interview like this or speaking to an association or leading a webinar, we can create one talk that you could deliver online or off that sells into that one program that you can deliver online or off. And literally, like, we don't need to create anything else new. You can just get really great at delivering that and make a lot of money doing it.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a great lesson to know, and I'm sure it'll be having a few people nodding their head thinking, oh wow, yeah, I can just, you know, come at this from a different angle and do what I'm doing now but in a different way, and all of a sudden I have a second income stream and then a third and a fourth, and ultimately that's how you get from those 2-3K a month days to about 5-6K a month to 10, 15, and so on. So that kind of scalability is huge, and that's something that you can progress over time. You don't necessarily have to, you know, reinvent the wheel down the line. It's just tweaking here and there.
Tweaking and adding. Yeah, I didn't start with all of that. Remember, it was like the workshop and then the private clients. And then when I had that stabilized, then I added a 6-week series. So you can add them along the way. Don't get overwhelmed, but do look at, you know, what's one new stream that you can add, stabilize that, and then add another. And next thing you know, you're doing multiple 6 figures or mid 6 figures, and you're working the same amount of time. That's what I absolutely love to do.
Fantastic. Well, I suppose to finish things up, I'm just interested to hear how you approach things now, because it sounds like you've really honed in on sort of what you're good at, your niche, your area of expertise, and you've gone and try and covered that blanket as much as possible, so you're providing as much content in a variety of different formats. You know, what happens now when you come up with a new idea, and whether it's a new course or a new event or whatever it might be? Are you constantly thinking about how you can touch very separate points in maybe a different way than you did sort of 2, 3, 4 years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question. I look at a few different things. One is I always remind myself of the core of what I do. Even last year, I was tempted to start to kind of veer off and go broad. And I saw that the marketing wasn't getting the same response, and I like pulled it back in. So even for myself, I'm relearn that message every year, is to look at this idea that I have, look at the core of what I do, which is how can you use speaking to grow your business and get leads and clients? And I see how closely does it relate to that topic. And for me, I want it to relate really closely. So all of our trainings are things like how to speak to get clients, how to close a room, how to lead workshops, how to do live events. Those are all like nestled right in that core, and that's where I stay. And so the first question is, does it fit? Is it closely aligned to that topic? And then the second thing is, how leveraged is it, and how well, you know, can I add that to what we're doing already? The way we have the business structured right now, I have an entry-level membership platform that's, you know, about $100 a month. So it's really easy for people who are just getting started. And for the most part, if I want to add new training content, I'm going to put it in that membership site. So that's a really nice kind of bundled way. Again, I can put a lot of people in there. We've got over 140 members in the Start Me Up with Speaking Club right now that absolutely love the training content that's in there. I can add a new module at any time and serve 140 people by recording one video or one audio. And then we have a membership site where I answer their questions, so they still get my expertise, but again, in a way that's very leveraged. So that's one place where I can add new content without making more work for myself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's a fantastic way to go about it, because you can still serve them one-on-one situations, but you're also giving yourself an opportunity to serve a one-to-many, whether that's a live event like you just did a couple of weeks ago, or whether that's through like a membership site. And it's just, I suppose, keeping yourself very focused on your mission and your vision and what you're good at, but kind of spreading yourself as much as possible.
Yeah, and it's important, you know, I'm a really big believer in making sure whatever you do, that you're still serving your audience. So I'm not like, let's look at how much we can leverage this and give people as little as possible of me for the most amount of money. And there are people doing that. But something like our Start Me Up with Speaking Club, which is very entry level, they all got a free ticket to the Rise live event. So they got to come spend 3 Power Pack days with me live. They had an amazing time. I had an amazing time. Again, I was leveraged, right? One of me over 100 some odd people in the room. So there's lots of ways that you can get leverage in your business and scale it and serve people in a really big way. And that's what I'm a big fan of.
Fantastic. Well, just to finish off, because what an amazing story it's been and a great journey, and it's had full of ups and downs, but wow, lots and lots of ups now, which is the main part of this whole exercise. If you could speak to your younger self, you know, at this time when that 3,000 paycheck was huge money, what would you tell your younger self to kind of reassure them that you're on the right track and to kind of keep your eye on the ball? Because it is difficult when, you know, an entrepreneur out there is suffering through, you know, the hardship and they're finding it hard to pay the bills. They've got the belief that they're going to get there, but they need that kind of reassurance, and it's still difficult to get through them days to day. What would you tell that younger version of you?
Oh my gosh, that's such a big question. It's a great question. I love it. It's like, oh, I'm going to cry. No, I won't cry. But I would say to the younger me and to anyone out there in a similar situation is know what you know. So somewhere inside of you, there is a sense that you know your goods, that you're good at what you do, and that if more people knew about you, you could probably be making more money. I know that's how I felt. And so I would say, trust that feeling 150%. That's number one. And number two is make your own opportunities. So I think I was always wanting and wishing and waiting for somebody else like to come tap me on the shoulder and say, you know, I have discovered you. You're so good at what you do. And now I would like to give you this opportunity to speak on my stage or something like we see in the movies. And you know, the real way to get more visible or to get on bigger stages or to be interviewed by somebody like yourself is to decide to get more visible and then to take the action to ask for interviews, to inquire on how you can get on people's stages. You can learn how to do those things and create your own opportunities. So number one is believe in that feeling inside because it is there for a reason. And then number two is take massive action on that feeling and create your own opportunities, because you can just decide to pull your chair up at the, I would say, the big girls table or the big boys table. You don't need to wait for an invitation. Grab a chair, sit, you know, pull your chair up next to Matthew and I, and let's go. But don't wait for someone to discover you, because you can do that for yourself.
Absolutely. And I think it's such a key thing, especially in the younger days and the new entrepreneur, whereas we live life so much on this blind faith. You know, we have faith that we're going to get there and that we're going to do it. And to an sense, it's just, you know, crazy, you know, in the sky dreams and stuff. But we need that blind faith, because otherwise you just wouldn't get through the day. Yet at the same time, you can't live off that blind faith alone. You have to make sure that when you're having a down day or you're doing it, you're not just expecting anything. That it's like, you know, if you're going to get to where you want, you're going to have to, you know, graft a little harder, make those opportunities happen. You know, like you say, go and actually make things happen. And sometimes it's just doing something, just one little thing a day.
I swear picking up the phone is the cure to like 99% of everyone's problems. So honestly, pick up the phone, call somebody. You can find people to partner with. You can find places to speak. You can find someone who will interview you. But when we hole up, like you were saying, and we kind of shrink back and we get quiet, that's not going to happen. But if you don't know what to do, pick up the phone and call somebody, and I bet something good will come out of it.
Fantastic. Well, Kristin, thank you ever so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and what an inspiring journey into that. It's been a crazy journey. It's had some crazy ups and downs, but it's led you to such a great place, and you're someone who's just continuing to grow. And you know, you've got this scalability factor now, and with that in mind, I'm sure your revenue and just your freedom and all your dreams, you just can continue to just be ticked off that list. And that's ultimately,
I sure hope so.
That is all why we are entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you, well, it certainly seems you have it cracked. So all the best to you. Thank you so much for sharing, and yeah, big cheers to everyone watching and listening too.
Thank you for having me.
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining myself and Kristin, and indeed thanks to Kristin for sharing her epic great mistake. It's something I believe we can all relate to. On the one hand, there's the business world, and we have so many decisions to make, and there's always failure and mistakes around the corner. But sometimes the mistakes you come across are personal ones, and often they're unavoidable. They're things that have no real direct impact on your business, but because they affect you as a person, they're going to have a massive impact on your business. But you still need to find a way to overcome them and turn it around. And I think Kristin really shares some wise words to help you do just that. So I hope you take a lot from this session. I have, and it's something I always consider, because as a father, you just never know when something in your personal world is going to rock everything else that you touch. So something to consider most definitely. And if you'd like to learn more about Kristin and about the show notes and such, head on over to tdog.co/purplecoffee46. That's tdog.co/purplecoffee46. You'll learn more about her world, all the links to her website, Twitter and such, and everything else that you need. And whilst there, maybe when you've finished listening to this, consider subscribing, rating and reviewing the Purple Coffee Podcast on iTunes. It would mean an awful lot, and it only takes you 2 minutes at the most. So all the info there too. And if you'd like to receive these sessions before everyone else, please sign up to the mailing list. And that's it. I hope you have a great day and a fantastic end to your week wherever you are. It's a true pleasure, and I hope that you'll reach out to me and say hello. It's one thing speaking to a microphone and camera, and a complete other getting an email from you. I want to start a conversation, so don't be shy. Reach out today. Cheers, and I'll speak to you soon.